I understand the value of my blood. Believe me, I hate how much I understand it. I know better than to dream of being free from this burden. I'm used to it by now. I used to think I didn't have the right to live freely. That's right. You know what? I'm a bit jealous. The whole time you were growing up, you never knew you had a crest. You were free. Nobody pretended to like you. I kind of hate you for that.
Sylvain is a character who might initially just seem like a shallow womanizer whose only character trait is his flirtatious skirt chasing. And admittedly, I was pretty turned off to his character, unlike all the girls he'd hit on, largely because it seemed like that was all that there was to his character. And here are just a few examples of Sylvain's masterful pickup artist techniques in action.
When I saw you, I just had to come over and say hello, because finding you here feels like fate.
Please excuse me.
You think I'd cheat? On you, baby? Never. Come on. You should know me better than that.
But Sylvain proves to be a more complex character through his supports, where he's revealed to have much more depth beyond his flirtatious and carefree facade, showing just how kind and thoughtful he really is when he lets his guard down and becomes more genuine. His support with Ash shows the duality between his shallow facade and his genuine thoughtfulness in how they discuss how to be a proper knight. Ash initially thinks that Sylvain is an immoral person because of the constant scandals that he finds himself in, but Ash's opinion is proven wrong when Sylvain shows just how much he genuinely thought through what it is to be a good knight. Initially, Sylvain presents his typical skirt-chasing persona to Ash when telling him what he believes makes a virtuous knight, and Ash is pretty exasperated. But in their B support, Sylvain genuinely expounds upon his beliefs on knightly virtue, telling Ash that what really makes a good knight is performing good acts instead of theorizing how to be virtuous. Sylvain focuses on moral action rather than the potential to do good, and Ash is shocked to hear such a thoughtful and profound idea of knighthood coming from someone who he previously thought was largely uninterested in doing any good. In the end, Sylvain reverts back to his typical charade by deflecting the conversation away from praising him and towards his degenerate antics. Sylvain performs such deflection because he fundamentally resents his natural talents due to how much it changes the way people view him, and instead of viewing his talents as a blessing, he views them as a curse. This can be seen in the support chain with Annette, where she's amazed at his ability to solve such complex logical equations with ease, but she becomes frustrated with how little effort he has to put into succeeding.
You're strong and smart without even trying. It's not fair.
Sylvain becomes uncomfortable with Annette's jealousy of his natural talent, and he falls back into self-destructive habits of self-deprecation to mitigate her belief in his natural abilities.
I've always been treated like I'm special, and I'm not. At least, I don't think I am. I'm just tired of people thinking they know what I can and can't do. When everybody expects something of you, or envies you, it's kind of suffocating. I'd rather people think I'm dumb.
Sylvain's supports with Annette show his propensity to undermine himself and his own abilities to keep others from feeling inferior to him, which is likely a behavior that's resultant from his relationship with Miquelon, but we'll get more into that later. Sylvain continues to show a capacity to be caring and thoughtful in his support with Bernadetta, in encouraging her writing. Sylvain reads Bernadetta's writing and is genuinely impressed by the quality of her writing, but she's too embarrassed that someone read her personal writing, so his praises don't really get through to her. Sylvain then writes her an anonymous letter so that she can understand that someone genuinely enjoyed her writing. Sylvain shows a capacity for understanding the needs of other people because he's able to understand Bernadetta's social anxiety and work around it. It reveals just how kind Sylvain can be when he genuinely appreciates someone. Sylvain proves himself to be thoughtful and caring once again when he talks to Dedue, and sympathizes with his struggles of being prejudged. Initially, Dedue tries to disengage with Sylvain with the purpose of saving Sylvain's reputation from being tarnished by speaking with someone from Dusker. But Sylvain won't have any of it.
Oh, please. I don't care who misunderstands what about me. I talk to who I want. Besides, I believe the Dusker people are innocent.
He then explains just why he thinks that the anti-Dusker sentiments within Fargus are misinformed, and that, in any case, those sentiments won't cause him to view Dedue any differently. Later, Dedue brings up some of the rumors that he's heard about Sylvain. Sylvain tells him not to worry about it, because he can't change their minds. But Dedue tells him that he couldn't let them spread lies about him like that, because Sylvain saw him as a person, and Dedue felt that it was his duty to defend Sylvain because of how kind he had shown himself to be. Sylvain will play around and will generally not take much of anything seriously, but when his friends need his help and support, he'll ultimately pull through to help them with any of their needs. This can be seen in his supports with his 3 childhood friends, Dimitri, Felix, and Ingrid. In their support chain, Dimitri makes a deal with Sylvain that they'll loosen up and be more disciplined respectively, and Sylvain stays true to his word. Dimitri gets in trouble with a girl and needs Sylvain's help. Sylvain offers to help, and he reminds Dimitri that he'll always be there to help him with girl stuff, since he's already proven himself to be deficient in that regard, due to the dagger incident. Sylvain's supports with Felix show off just how helpful he can be, when even though he neglects his training, he puts himself in risky situations to help his friend. Felix gets angry because he might lose Sylvain if he keeps up his bad habits, but then they remind each other of their childhood vow.
Do you remember the promise we made when we were kids? About sticking together until we die together?
I remember.
Well, I'm really not trying to get myself killed before you. You know that, right?
Sylvain and Felix's supports show the brotherly love between the two, and consistently shows Sylvain making active efforts to help Felix through being a good friend. Finally, Sylvain's supports with Ingrid start out pretty lighthearted and funny, revealing that Sylvain doesn't discriminate when it comes to his womanizing. But it quickly becomes more serious. Ingrid tells Sylvain that helping him is what gave her purpose in life after her fiancé Glenn's death, and she worries about him getting hurt. This snaps him out of his carefree attitude because he realizes just how much his well-being means to her. There's more significant character growth later in his support chain with Ingrid, but that pertains more to his deficiency with love, so we'll get back to that later. Regardless of his positive traits, Sylvain has a cynical outlook on life that has him constantly putting up walls to hide his genuine feelings. The question as to why Sylvain would develop such a cynical and destructive outlook on life is answered in his later support chains and in his relationship with Miquelon. His past shows just how the crest system has affected him and his family, and explains why he views the world so cynically. In his supports with Byleth comes across Sylvain treating some girls like garbage, and criticizes him. But he reveals that he's only doing it as a way of retaliation. He elaborates, describing how he thinks that the girls only want him for his crest baby, the shallowness of which deeply bothers him. And so, he hates the girls who typically like him because they play right into the values of the crest system that have kept him from living a normal and happy life. He views his valuation in the crest system as a curse because it caused people to perpetually make judgments and valuations of him without even knowing who he really is. Now, Sylvain's relationship with Miquelon is a perfect example of his issues with his own natural talents and his resentment for people that believe in the fatalistic determinism of natural talents and crests. Sylvain is conflicted in that he both pities Miquelon for how their parents tossed him aside for not having a crest, but he also hates Miquelon for how Miquelon blamed him for all of his problems in life, even though Sylvain couldn't control how he was born. Sylvain reveals just how unfair Miquelon was to him when talking to Byleth in their A support, where he says,
You know, he once shoved me in a well. He left me on the mountainside in the middle of winter, too.
It also seems that Sylvain is critical of Miquelon for how he chose to respond to his hardships by conforming to the low expectations that others had of him by choosing to become a bandit. Sylvain clearly shows his disdain before the Grey Tower mission, where he says,
He is no longer a member of House Gautier, or my brother. He's nothing more than a common thief.
But even after all that Miquelon has subjected him to, Sylvain still felt some empathy for his unfortunate brother when his class ultimately kills him at the tower.
Miquelon. My brother.
Sylvain has a troubled past with his brother Miquelon, yet he still empathizes and connects with his brother's issues, showing just how much Sylvain really cares for others. Sylvain copes with the pain caused in his life by being a noble with a crest by acting out to almost stick it to people who would prejudge him. But eventually, he'll learn to move past these issues by opening up to people about his problems, and becoming more vulnerable by loving others. Sylvain's support with Mercedes is interesting in that initially he genuinely sees something of value within her that he appreciates from the very beginning, where he isn't even trying to pick her up. Through talking, they learn that they have a lot of similarities in their negative experiences with the crest system, where Sylvain actually opens up to her about his frustrations with his own family. He initially tries to play off his outburst and put his facade back up to keep himself from being vulnerable to her, but Mercedes lets him know that it was good for him to open up about his genuine feelings, and that they can help each other work through their hardships.
Mercedes. Was my sad smile really that bad? Did it ruin my dashing good looks?
Not at all. You actually look more handsome to me with honesty on your face.
Aw, here come the waterworks.
Sylvain is actually brought to a genuine display of emotion because of how touched he is, and Mercedes tells him that his honest self is the most attractive version of him that she's ever seen. Now we can talk about what is, in my opinion, the peak of Sylvain's character development, where he not only opens up to other people, but he shows the capacity to love other people genuinely. When Sylvain runs into Byleth at the Goddess Tower, he acts as disingenuous as ever when trying to win her over, but he ends up having a moment of introspection after he's rejected by her. He realizes that if he wants a good relationship with someone he really cares about, he'll need to be more genuine to build rapport of trust and companionship. Sylvain really doesn't show much remorse for his actions prior to this event, but the Goddess Tower seems to be a potential catalyst for his character that can lead him to introspect more to become someone who's worthy of having a loving relationship. Sylvain's support with Dorothea focuses on Sylvain's views on shallowness and his problem with disingenuity. Dorothea doesn't like Sylvain's cynical and demeaning mindset when he flirts with girls, and she can tell that he does secretly hate them for their shallowness. But she points out that while he is highly critical of women being shallow, he is also guilty of the very same shallowness in only approaching women based on their looks. At the end of the support chain, both parties come to accept that an initial attraction to the superficial is valid, and they bond over their shared insecurities on whether or not people truly love them for them. Finally, they both go on to truly appreciate one another beyond the superficial, finally finding like-minded partners in one another that genuinely appreciate each other for who they are instead of what they are. In Sylvain's A supports with Ingrid, he begins to feel more close to her because he starts to realize that Ingrid is someone who genuinely cares about him deep down. And after dealing with so many women who love him for various shallow reasons, he doesn't really know how to act around a girl that he genuinely cares about and appreciates, as seen in his amazing conversational skills in his A+ support with Ingrid.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess you're right.
Sylvain's S support with Byleth provides a positive and fitting end to his character arc because it shows just how much Sylvain has grown in building relationships where he shows the capacity to truly love someone else. This capacity is shown in his acknowledgement that he has to cut out the flirtatious language and that he resolves to truly work his whole life to make the person that he loves happy. In his S support with Byleth, the game explicitly shows Sylvain overcoming his cynical attitude to let himself become vulnerable through genuinely loving someone else.
I'm going to spend the rest of our lives together trying to make you happy. I promise.
Sylvain is a great character because he has some deep-seated character flaws resulting from his upbringing that he actively overcomes in his character arc, much like the rest of the Blue Lions cast. His character subverted my expectations of being a one-note man-whore, and really elevated that character archetype to something more complex and ultimately human, which is why Sylvain is one of my favorite characters in the game. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos and to let me know what you thought in the comments below. I'm always happy to engage with my audience.
Can we watch something else?
It's about to get really good. It's about to get really good. Trust me.